right, welcome, everybody. It is Wednesday, March 20th, 2024. This is episode 72 of Business on the Block. This week, Google and Apple, the AI dream team. This is a story we're going to dig into about Apple is cozying up to Google. The two companies are reportedly discussing bringing Gemini to the iPhone. Such a collaboration could reshape the future of both AI and mobile, and we'll tell you why. We're also going to cover some digital humans story. We'll tell you why your next coworker may be an AI avatar. And finally, we'll update you on the latest in crypto and taxes. This is not a crypto show, but we're seeing the streamlining of crypto tax reporting. There's some conversation around what that means. I'm joined, as always, by my lovely co-host, Michelle Peterson-Clark.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon in the UK.
And Mike Neubauer.
Good morning in real time.
And so Business on the Block, for those who don't know, this is the future of digital media, blockchain, and business. Our goal here is to give you guys a little insight and have a business conversation around the evolution of blockchain in business and how we can use it in our companies ourselves, for you guys as well. All right, story number one. This is coming to us. Where is this coming from? Hold on. This is coming to us from Mashable. Apple and Google reportedly discuss bringing Gemini to the iPhone. Bloomberg is reporting that Apple is talking to Google right now about this. Google would gain access to the billions of iPhone users, and Apple would suddenly have a horse in the AI race. For those who aren't following the AI story, frankly, Apple has been lagging in the AI world. They generally tend strategically to kind of hang back, and at the end, they perfect the tech, as they did with the Vision Quest, whatever, the ProVision. Right now, they have an LLM that people didn't even know is named Ajax, which has not performed well enough for public release. So they're chatting with the Google folks. Google, of course, has had a couple of stumbles with their woke AI lately. So for those who don't know, Google search is the default search engine on iPhone. These two companies have a relationship, but they are definitely not philosophically aligned in terms of data. We'll start on this one. Michelle, if first thoughts around this, do you think this is an interesting story, that it's going to work, that this is just fluff? Do they need to even be doing this?
So we've talked before, haven't we, about Apple bringing out some kind of wallet or something integrating blockchain, Web3. So it's not out of the realms, is it, to think that they would have some kind of AI capability? Now, people
actually,
already
Michelle,
have.
Just to espouse on that for a little bit, explain that. Many of the listeners might not know our old conversations. What do you mean by the wallet thing?
So we've been talking about in terms of onboarding people into Web3, so into the blockchain environment where information can be stored and collected, but kind of a little bit like the Apple Wallet that you have currently, where you can have your bank cards and your credit cards and your store cards already listed for you to access them easily. We've talked about having a Web3 wallet, so a wallet where you can access tokens and cryptocurrencies that you have on the blockchain and have that built into your wallet. And we've talked about that a number of times, where we think not long, if it's not this year, then next year, or at some time in the future, we think relatively soon, that Apple will come out with a Web3 wallet already on your new iPhone, rather than you having to download something like MetaMask, which people do now.
Interesting.
Yeah. So going on from that, in terms of an AI integration with Apple and Google, what we're seeing already is that people have AI apps already on their phone, don't they? If you've got Midjourney, or you've got Gemini, or you've got a number of the AI tools that are out there, lots of people would already have them on their phones anyway. So this is kind of not out of the realms. What this is talking about a little bit, though, is like when I got my Sony Music phone that had Justin Timberlake's What Goes Around Comes Around as the song that was on the phone. And Mike often talks about U2, don't you? U2 album on a phone, you got it on there in Apple Music, whether you wanted it or not. So it's kind of just an extension of that, but into AI, isn't it?
That's interesting. I could see that. Yeah, that's something that Apple has done previous and would fit.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think about this?
So Apple has invested pretty heavily into the AR realm, right? We saw it with the goggles and, all the advancements that they're making with that. Almost feels like the AI train left the station without them. So This is almost a grasp of, could we get in this game too? Unfortunately for them, they chose Gemini, which, again, has a very particular reputation on the way its AI generation is being conducted at this point. But, Apple comes in and says, hey, we have a cult of people who follow everything we do and religiously will jump off a bridge if we tell them to. So if we team up with you, then maybe people will think you're a good guy. And frankly, this is the devil shaking hands with the devil. And wherever this ends up, I picture myself walking into a restaurant with my family, ready to enjoy a nice meal, and watching somebody sit at a table with a pair of goggles on, having a conversation with, I don't know, Richard Pryor while they're eating their meal, as an AI avatar, infused within their AR goggles. Unfortunately, this is the manufactured reality that people are going to live in. And, look, again, this is nothing more than two tech giants who are supposed to be in somewhat of a competitive environment, teaming up and saying, hey, I'm lacking something that you have, and you're lacking something that we have. Let's make an arrangement.
I'm going to expand on that, Mike. I think that the lead horse in the AI world, everyone would acknowledge, is OpenAI, which is really Microsoft. So Microsoft is right now effectively running away with the race. You have in second place Google, who's had some major stumbles with their Gemini, the woke backlash. It's not as accurate, as effective. People aren't trusting it the way they do on OpenAI right now. But you also have, believe it or not, Amazon in the distant third with Claude, Anthropic, and they are actually, well regarded. Maybe they're not as popular, but they are considered to be almost as good as OpenAI in terms of performance. So against that backdrop, Apple's a non-factor. Now, you can't count them out as a business because they've got so much cash on hand that they could just buy and be relevant at any moment. So you have to keep an eye on them. But they do need a player. They do need a partnership. They're trying. I didn't even know they had an Ajax LLM. And so they're not in the market right now. So I expected they would partner with an Amazon Claude thing and just be the money behind it. Instead, they're going with Google, which is a second player, obviously. And I think that there's a philosophical problem between these companies, the way they approach data, personal privacy. They are not aligned. The other thing I'll say is, I don't know what dominated, but my second point, and this is such a fast-moving space of AI, you really need a visionary. An Elon Musk, whether you like him or not, knows where he wants to go, or even a Jeff Bezos back in the day. They don't have that at Apple. I think that Tim Cook is an excellent leader, but he's a manager. He's a great clerk for existing business lines. But to someone to come forward and say, this is where we're going in the world, Apple is lacking their Steve Jobs vision. So all they have right now is money. And I feel like, I don't know that Google's that firm either, but they're out there and they're already in the market with it. So those are my thoughts on the business side of it. It'd be interesting to see how this develops.
I agree with you about that. I think that Tim is methodical, thoughtful, a good administrator, but not exciting.
Because this,
you know what I mean? Like, and this type of thing needs someone that can just be out there and carry people along with them. And I'm not sure for this type of thing that he's that kind of person.
When Steve was talking about the rebels, the misfits, and Apple is a weapon in the hand of the artist, like, these are silly, but it makes it go somewhere. Tim has talked nothing like that. Tim is just, that's why people complain they just re-release different versions of the iPad with different screens and different color iPhones. Like, they've squeezed what they can out of it, and managerially, it's been great. But for something like AI, how are you going to use it? Where should it go? What's its place in the role with humanity? Like, these are big questions, and Apple has not really addressed any of that.
Well, I mean, we're also talking about the AI integration within the hardware itself, right? I mean, if you download any app now, WhatsApp, any of these things, they all have AI integration in some way, shape, or form. Whether people are using it or not is not the point. The tentacles are in these various apps. And now it's going to be in the hardware. And again, we stand on our soapbox, and some of it falls on deaf ears, some of it doesn't. But where the hell does this data live? Who is mining this data? Who's going to monetize this data over time? How are they going to be able to position these things over a period of 5 to 10 years in development of new hardwares or softwares predicated on people's input within these AI algorithms, right? And again, how much of this AI is just, I guess, smokescreen for one of the things that they just really want to incorporate, just calling it AI instead of a traditional data mining algorithm? I mean, these are buzzwords that people are willing to accept now. We talk about the Ferrari, right? The Ferrari being AI. People are attracted to it. They're drawn to that concept because they feel that this technologically is where things are going. But it doesn't dismiss that there's potential for any sort of fraud that goes behind that. So I'm not suggesting Apple's going to do that, but I am.
It almost sounds like you don't trust these big companies.
Oh, no. I always trust
I've
them.
shared this story with you guys, but I've done strategic consulting with firms who say things like, well, we need to make sure we've got AI reflected in our advertising and marketing. And I'm like, do you have AI? And they're like, well, there's a lot of complex technology. I'm sure we can call something AI.
Exactly.
So,
they did the same thing with blockchain.
Yeah, right. But the thing is, Google, we already know what they're going to do. Like they're going to just harvest the data. That's what they do well. They're built for that. Apple has really made a stand on personal privacy, not playing ball with the government. They can't unlock the iPhone for the FBI. There have been tons of issues where that company tries to stand for personal freedoms. These two companies, now that there's money involved, I don't know. And by the way, what happens when Tim Cook leaves? There's a lot of question marks around how this develops. But you can't argue the fact that Apple has so much money, it gives Microsoft something to sweat.
I think, again, you have a head start in this race. We saw what Amazon did compared to Walmart, right? Walmart is the biggest company in the world dollar-wise as far as retail and everything like that, but they will never hold a candle to what Amazon can provide in online forums. Walmart has since tried to develop that, and they've spent an enormous amount of time and energy in building out their online marketplace, virtual replication of what Amazon is. But Amazon had the horse leave the gate pretty quick, and it's hard for anyone to catch up with that. I think Apple feels that same pressure with AI, and they can throw money all over the place, but it's not going to get them to the place that they need to be to compete with something like Microsoft has already invested.
The money's got to get you something specific. Like when Amazon jumped in and bought a piece of Anthropic, that was early enough that they could then argue, okay, we're a player.
Yeah.
Musk is in the same boat right now with Grok. Like he's behind the 8 ball and he's got the personal brand maybe, but there's no real technology there yet. I think that Amazon. Go ahead.
And where does Facebook fit in all this?
Nowhere.
And I was going to say, I think let's not kid ourselves. There are avenues to make money out of this stuff, no matter who you are, given the right circumstances and in terms of Meta, Facebook, Apple, Google, Anthropic, Microsoft, whoever. There is still money to be made by these people. However, what these people are playing for is a measuring contest, and it's about who's first. It's not what we're playing for as consumers, or even if we were a small company that's created an app. That's not us. But at this end of town, these boys are playing for the number one spot. And as Mike said, and we've said before, like the OpenAI, the gate is just like we're in the dust in terms of how far ahead they are. No matter, and basically they're jockeying now for second and third, fourth position, not for first.
So here's the operative question in my mind. Will it work? I feel like technology-wise, they can do it. They've got the money. They're all tech firms. That's great. But there's a bigger piece here when you have two businesses that are two totally different managerial philosophies.
Okay, I'm gonna jump into the conspiracy side of things for a second here, and I'm just gonna play the what if game. What if OpenAI has set up some sort of a system that has studied what Google and Apple have done in their entire history?
Yeah, it's called AI. They do that.
Okay, so they created this this system, this AI system that is designed to learn and study and therefore predict the next steps that they would take in the development. This is the horse out of the gate in its full capacity on the tech side, because now OpenAI can sit there, understand where the company has been and what their hope of development in some of these technologies are going to yield, and still stay one step ahead of them. And they can use the same AI algorithms that they build to help with that.
Yes and no. My response to that would be, knowing what your competitor is going to do is a totally different world from executing.
I understand that, but we're talking about a reputational piece, right? Michelle said first out of the gate. It's not necessarily first, but best, right? So people are going to be drawn to what's best, i.e. Threads versus Twitter, right? So Threads sucks, Twitter still sucks, but it sucks less. Bottom line here is that, you know, the development of this technology is still so young, but it's still so far advanced on the internal side of these companies. And again, this is a monumental shift of what we classified as big tech. And there's a new player in the game, and either these guys are willing to accept it, or they can team up and try to crush it, which may not seem too plausible at this point.
So here's my expectation. I don't think OpenAI loses their leadership position. I think that the Claude, Anthropic, Amazon thing grows. I'm curious how Musk will develop in this, but I really don't think the Apple, Google, Gemini is going to be a big threat. Now, however, on the flip side for Google, being on the iPhones is going to be a huge, that would actually make Siri relevant, which is just nothing but a meme right now. And I think that there's something to be said for the phone angle of it all. That's where I would watch the mobile world more than I would care about the AI world.
From
Well,
a
if they're
marketing
intertwined,
perspective,
that's a problem.
Go ahead, Michelle.
from a marketing perspective, I think that the Apple converts, those people who are Apple everything in their families, in their homes, you know, if they had a car, they'd be driving an Apple car. Those people would be the people that are most likely to go, oh yeah, Apple's thing's out now, it's working, I'm going to move from here to there, because then it keeps me within the Apple ecosystem. There will be those people that will do that.
So you're arguing
that.
That's a good point, Michelle. It doesn't need to be great. It just needs to be good enough.
It needs to be integrated with everything else. So it works on the watch, it works on the iPad, it works on the phone, it works, you know, on the Apple TV, everything together. Because one of the biggest bugbears we have as consumers right now is that we've got two apps that we love and they don't talk to each other very well, and it's a nightmare. How do I get, you know, this to do that with that? Right? But when you're in an ecosystem, like if you're an Android user or if you're an Apple user, things that you use generally within each ecosystem can work seamlessly for you. And that is a big positive. I'm not saying that means they're going to overtake OpenAI, but what I'm saying is that take-up rates because of that may actually be enough for them to keep doing it.
Yeah.
What about the underlying hardware pieces that are assimilated with both tech devices? I mean, Google is synonymous with Android, right? I mean, is that going to change now? Is Safari in trouble?
Yes.
Yeah.
That will change. I don't know if Safari's in trouble, but it will change everything. And I feel like if I'm going to use a soda analogy, if Microsoft / OpenAI, that's the Coca-Cola of the soda world. Like they're the name. Then you've got a very close second with Pepsi, and that's going to be Gemini. Right now, Google's struggling, but they're number 2. And then in the third place, go ahead.
In your analogy, Pepsi's the bigger company.
I know, and I'm not saying, but I'm saying there's a 1 and 2 back and forth. McDonald's, Burger King, whatever, Walmart, Target. There's that going on here in the AI world. But then you've got this like amalgamation of Dr. Pepper way the heck down the ranks, which is number 3. But they've got like
Mountain Dew.
Yeah, Mountain Dew. Oh, sure. But like you've got these, they're all in one big thing. It's like Yum Brands with the food, where it's Taco Bell and Baskin Robbins. It's a bunch of stuff all packed in there. So you've got your Crush and your Canada Dry and your Schweppes and all this stuff, and that becomes Dr. Pepper's argument. That's what we're going to see with the AI world, where Apple and Google, they're going to pile in a bunch of stuff. Something will stick, most of it won't. It's going to be you're bolting this something together that I really don't think is going to last long term.
Shout out to Bolt.
All right. I'm taking this to story number 2. We're going to talk about digital humans right now, the relatable face of AI. This is a story from CNN, which is a first for this program. There's a UK startup named Sum Vivas, and they're saying that they want to use digital humans to bridge the gap between AI tech and actual human workers. So this is the quote from the CEO. We're moving into a stage where digital humans will become just another member of the team. They're referring to the work office. They're looking for a way to benefit both the customers and the team that's serving the customers. So the concept is, if you're a remote run firm, you dial in on Zoom or whatever, Google Meet, and you're going to now have AI avatars that run departments eventually and do their functional role the way you do yours, and you meet and collaborate with these folks digitally. And they're not real people. They are, again, this is AI driven. So conceptually, it sounds great. In real life, it sounds weird. I guess, Michelle, we'll start with you on this one. What are your thoughts on digital humans in the workplace?
If you actually watch the video, I don't know whether Mike's able to play some of the video in the background while we're talking about it, but it's good, but it's still not great, this stuff. As with the mute it,
artificial intelligence can already help you write emails.
It's crazy.
The hands still are creepy. They don't work. They're not great. They haven't been from the very beginning. At least she hasn't got 7 fingers or something, but, not fantastic. So it's kind of a bit icky when you look at it. One of the things that I think is, and I'm not trying to be, I'm in my 50s, so I'm not trying to be that generation of, I'm not a boomer, but, I don't want to be old school or whatever, but to me right now, this stuff is gimmicky. Now, everyone loves it. It's fantastic. If you actually listen to the CNN piece, they'll tell you about the fact that, they wore clothes at the Paris, fashion festival or fashion show or whatever in Paris, the fashion week, great. Okay, fine. But at the end of the day, I don't know that people are going to only watch these sorts of DJs, for example, in this particular example, when you can, there are people like in the old days when Avicii was still alive, people actually went to shows to watch him do his thing in real life. Now, conversely to that, we've talked about, haven't we, ABBA and Elvis and, all these sort of digital shows. But in those particular cases at the moment, like with ABBA, they actually did recordings of themselves doing things, and it was, with the green suits, with the dots and stuff. So that was created a little bit differently. Obviously, tech will get better and things will happen. But at the end of the day, there's a disconnect for me between how someone feels about looking at this stuff outside of, hey, wow, isn't the technology getting fantastic? And I've got another point to make, but you guys talk too.
No, I agree with you. It does seem like a bit of the going for wow factor. Don't forget that they're a startup, right? So they're going to want to make a splash and do that. Mike, what are your thoughts?
I think that if we had an issue with, I guess, automated customer service things on the phone, this is going to be an absolute nightmare. How much time is going to be spent wasted trying to train these things to do what you need it to do, just to find out that it's extremely poor at it? This is again, I agree with you, Michelle. It's a gimmick. It's something that a few companies might jump on and then realize their mistake extremely quick. These things are nothing more than computer programs. We need to understand that and believe that, because a computer program has a finite set of guardrails that it must live around. And when a business is trying to pivot in real time, to retrain and reprogram that program takes time, it takes money, and it takes testing. So if you start relying on these things to conduct critical components of your business, the onboarding and the training component must be factored into its capabilities. And again, this is going to create all new positions, C-level positions, where people are going to get paid a ridiculous amount of money to sit there and analyze how her hands look and really justify that as they're trying to build out this avatar to replace certain workloads that people undertake. Is this something that we need to keep our eye on and look out for? No. This is just something that, it's another failed attempt of leveraging what this technology is and how businesses could use it. And frankly, again, everything is predicated on a return on investment. I don't see the return on this anytime soon.
So this is the early fluff run of NFTs, in my opinion. This is going to be, it's like the hot new thing, and everyone's the get rich quick movement, and people, it's cool. But in real life, it's going to blow up. And then a year or two later, I do think we're going to see avatars, and not even maybe avatars, just like workplace people who aren't people, because companies can save money by replacing departments. They're already doing that. You don't need the actual overlay of a fake avatar for the Zoom meeting. But the functional roles that humans used to do, it can now be performed by machinery. That's not going to go away. But we're going to go through this boom bust cycle first right now, where people are like, oh, how cool is this? So that's go ahead, Michelle.
So I'll give you a story that is about chatbots. And so, it could be that you're actually looking at a person as opposed to just being a chat thing. So Air Canada have a policy where if you have to fly somewhere for a funeral, they have a particular price for bereavement that you are allowed to book an airfare for. The person went on to Air Canada's website. They had to go that day because they were, relative dying or had just died, and asked the chatbot about the policy of, do I have to get, apply for the bereavement fare, or can I buy my ticket and then get a refund later, etc., etc. The AI chatbot said to the person, you are able to purchase your ticket and claim a rebate later. Okay. The guy buys the ticket, flies to whatever he had to do. When he came back, he made a claim. Air Canada said, I'm sorry, our policy written on our website says you had to have applied before. We're not going to refund you the whatever it was. It was like $300. And he said, but hang on, your AI chatbot told me, no problem, I can do whatever. Fortunately for him, he actually kept a screenshot of the conversation with the AI chatbot. It went to court because Air Canada was so stupid in saying, oh no, don't worry about the AI chatbot. That was written by a third party. Where does that sound familiar in the things we've talked about? Sports Illustrated, put your hand up. And they
Facebook fact checkers.
Yeah. They took it to court, and the judge said, sorry, guys, that AI chatbot's on your website. If it and your policy are conflicting, that's actually not the consumer's fault. And they lost. But they lost a lot more than the court case and the $300. What about the bad publicity they've got from this? It's ridiculous. So the simple fact of the matter is, as Mike said before, you program these things or whatever, people work out they're actually not really that fantastic. But ultimately they are representatives of your company. So when I look at the picture of this DJ woman, I think to myself, well, if that's the representation of my company, it's got a long way to go.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Companies are going to misstep with this in the beginning because it seems like a cool new thing. It's the NFT run at back when it's all going to go to zero in the first year.
But again, if you are trying to get something done, you call customer service because your device is broken and you have little patience and you're frustrated and you keep pushing 5 or 0 to talk to an operator and it keeps bouncing you back and ultimately you throw your phone against the wall. Do you care if she's wearing a red fluffy jacket?
But how many companies are going to think this is a great cost savings device? We don't have to hire a customer service team.
Again, this is where the rubber's going to hit the road, right? Because where does that return on investment happen? Does it create more problems than it does what your potential expectations are on good? I mean, this is everything Michelle just discussed, right? Like Air Canada, I mean, that's a good example, but I'm glad to see that there's actually good news coming from Canada with respect to that ruling. Air Canada doesn't care because there's one competitor in Canada and it's WestJet. There's nobody else up there that would do anything.
Yeah.
So $300, whatever, bad publicity. They tried to deflect a tool that they replaced somebody with. That's the crux of it.
Michelle, you're going to say something? Sorry, Mike. Continue.
No,
No,
and the third party responsible, did they come up in this lawsuit? Were they brought to the table saying, hey, why did you answer it this way? Because their response would have been, well, this is the information that Air Canada had provided us to train the bot. And round we go.
Yep.
So some context on this and try to get this for make it relevant for the listening audience. I think this speaks to the fact that if you're going to deploy AI inside your company anywhere, big or small, you better have a strategy for how this thing is going to be applied, how you're going to handle situations. There's a whole new world of, if AI is part of your team, which is effectively what this story was about, then you have to own it and train it and be responsible for it. It's just like part of your team. And I don't think companies they're still looking at it as a tech piece, like an API or an Excel spreadsheet.
It's like when your employee wearing your shirt on the way home from work with your logo blazoned on it, and they turn up at a Nazi rally somewhere and it goes viral on Twitter, and suddenly people are ringing up and saying to you, well, is your company, supporters of the Nazis? We're not going to buy from you anymore. And the company goes, oh, no, right?
You got to take your work shirt off, Michelle, when you go to these things.
The AI chatbot is a representation of your company, whether you want to have your hands on it or not. Yeah. And that's the thing that there's going to be a lot more Air Canada stories out there over the next 12 to 18 months before companies actually start to go, oh, hang on, maybe we actually need to train this LLM a bit and create our own internal. And we've talked about this, haven't we? We've talked about companies using these things, creating their own database, and then having an answer from that. This would have just been let's sack 6 people in the call center room answering the website questions, put in an AI chatbot. Aren't we smart? We save, $300,000 a year. And they probably spent more than that on going to court for this court case that they lost.
What was it, Clavio, the story a couple of weeks back we saw? They said they're not going to make any more new hires because they've got AI now. Like the companies are already doing that.
Yeah,
but again, one of the things, and we can ask Gemini this, because people purposefully went out of the way to break the AI algorithm, right? They went out of their way to put in prompts that they knew would yield a specific result. You can easily manipulate these AI chat bots to provide content on which can potentially be controversial and lead to other lawsuits. Right. And look, there will be ambulance chasing people out there that are going to make that an effort and go full force on that. And again, the cat came out of the bag a little fast for these companies. They got rid of people that they're going to have to rehire to retrain the bot with everything that they were experienced with working with the company, and then be given the same pink slip all over again.
I just want to draw that distinction. I agree with everything you say, Mike, but it's not as simple as the technology of training a bot or an LLM data feed. It's got to do with the strategy at the C-suite level of what are we really doing with this AI thing, and are we going to what will we do if something goes wrong? It's no different than when you go into a new business line and you decide we're going to buy this company as a division of our big mega corporation. Like, you're now in that space. I don't think the firms don't yet realize what they're getting involved with AI.
And again,
what
to your
Marc's
analogy of NFT, your NFT analogy earlier, some of these people played in the sandbox that they weren't ready to play in.
Right.
What Mike's talking about is institutional memory.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Good point.
And we have seen, haven't we, over the last 10 years, that has become way less important until after the fact, until a year down the track later, companies go, oh shit, we really shouldn't have got rid of all of those people that actually knew the ins and outs and how to deal with all of the problems. Like, happens all the time now.
Please continue.
I was going to say, there's a lot of companies that, don't realize after, it's all very well to say, oh, well, this person's worked here 35 years, they're old, they're stale, they're whatever. But you know what? They're the ones that know where the hammer hit has to go to make the printing press not actually do the mistake that it's now doing every issue if you're a print thing, for example.
So the over hire, over fire dynamic. I worked in finance, so it was a running gag that it was layoff season in October, and everyone was getting canned.
Yeah.
And then you didn't matter who fired you. You were getting hired again in January, probably by the same firm or maybe a different one. So yeah, I think that this is going to be a conversation inside these companies at what are we doing with the AI? How do we want to apply it? Is it a workflow tool to make us more efficient? Is it going to be a creative tool to make us, grow our brand? But there's obligations and responsibilities that go with that.
Well, they need to think of it from both sides of the spectrum. They need to think about it from the customer experience, and they need to think about it from the morale level of the employees that they're shit canning.
They're not looking at that.
Well, that's a problem, because when they need those people to come back and train the system that just replaced them, then what? Sorry, have a nice day.
You call Itana. All right, I want to take us. I want to take us to the blockchain portion of, if I could, which is primarily what we want to talk about here for a second. So we're going to story number 3. Is a coin ledger joining forces with MetaMask for streamlined crypto reporting. For those who don't know, MetaMask is the leading gateway to decentralized applications, dApps on the blockchain, and CoinLedger is a crypto tax software company akin to, say, like a TurboTax. And so, before I run you through this, can we do the conspiracy corner bit? Grab your hats. I got one. I got yelled at last week, by the way, so I took the time to put together my conspiracy hat.
Oh, finally.
Oh, look at you.
All right. So here's the story.
Perfect.
This is saying that right now MetaMask is joining forces with CoinLedger to streamline tax reporting for crypto buyers. The stated goal is to reduce the burden of tax calculation for crypto investors. They're saying it will reduce barriers to entry for new users and increase convenience, and that basically what you buy or sell in crypto on MetaMask is automatically reported to the government agencies, IRS specifically in the United States. So this partnership reflects the increasing intersection between decentralized finance, DeFi, and of course, traditional finance, which, by the way, well, we'll talk about that in a second. I've got my thoughts on this, but we're going to start off with you, Mike. Let's start with your thoughts on this whole CoinLedger joining forces with MetaMask.
Oh, we have your best interest at heart. We care about you. This is nothing more than a snub to the decentralized system and a nod to the government saying, hey, guys, guess what? We can still play with you too. Look, I don't know where all of this ends up. The reality is that there's no legislation on the books right now with respect to anything that's relative to crypto. We state all the time about how, is it a currency or is it an asset? Is it an asset?
Crypto.
Well, again, it could be used in multiple different ways, right? And each one could be used in multiple different ways. So how is it taxed? Is MetaMask making that determination? Like,
no.
Are we trusting MetaMask to say, hey, this is how it's going to get done?
Right now, just to keep people up to speed, currently you would get a wallet, Trezor, whatever, Ledger, MetaMask, it doesn't matter. And then you would do your crypto thing and then tell the government later, I bought or I didn't buy, right? Honor system. You can see the problem. And so by having it automated, the thinking is, well, now you don't have all the complexity of crypto tax accounting problems. But obviously, this flies in the face of the decentralized ethos of crypto.
Yes, and it takes away the anonymous component of some of these digital wallets as well.
Michelle, is this a convenience play, or is this are they working here on intentionally to try to undercut blockchain?
We've talked before about they will get their grubby little fingers in any cracks or crevices that they can, in any way that they can. And so this is just another, how many other metaphors would you like?
So you're saying this is not about convenience then?
Oh, of course. As Mike said, they're here to help you. I'm from the government. I'm here to help. Trust me. I don't think so. Look, at the end of the day, if you have made lots of money or lost lots of money within the blockchain cryptocurrency world, then you may or may not have had to reconcile things or do things in the past for your tax returns, depending on who you are and what you did and whether or not you've just squirreled away things in certain wallets that nobody knows you own. In the earlier days, it was easy, wasn't it? Because there were many, many people, probably 80% of the blockchain Web3 cohort was undoxed. So people didn't know who they were. They hid behind their monkey pictures on, Twitter or, wherever they were. But these days, that's getting less and less because of all of that's happened and all of the rugs and all of the money lost. People are now having to show their face. So when you do that, if you actually now use your name on Twitter instead of your, whatever your crypto name was, then if you're talking about making billions and millions of dollars, then the government will actually start to look for you. And so I guess this is one of their ways of trying to link those things together. Now, if you're above board and you want to, and you don't mind the government knowing about all of your business and what you do, then I guess you'll be thinking, oh, this is great. I can streamline my reporting and I don't have to worry about it anymore. There are going to be those people in those camps, in that camp. Then there's going to be the people that are probably in Mike's camp.
So I've real quick, I've actually spoken on stages at crypto accounting events recently, and it's a big problem because they don't even know what the rules are. The accountants for crypto don't know the rules because the government hasn't made them. And so this whole conversation around whether or not this is convenient, that's a false front. Mike, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I agree. And again, like we sort of all said, I mean, this is not an intended use case to help. It's just a nod to the government saying, hey, we're still here to play ball with you. But I have a very, very specific question because the government can't answer this. We go back and forth all the time. But now all of a sudden, we're relying on MetaMask to automate the process of what's defined as a realized gain to get taxed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't know the details. The article doesn't say it, but it says that it's going to report. It's automated reporting to the government.
What does that mean? You end up on a list somewhere that says you conducted this transaction?
That's exactly
what if
what it
that transaction does not realize the gain? Therefore, it's not taxable.
It means they know you bought the 10,000 Bitcoin you bought last week. That's what it means.
And again, what happens if you are on vacation and you buy it from there?
Okay, so now you're getting to the world of VPNs, et cetera, and that's the conversation. For larger context, for those who don't remember this, Binance got in trouble for not enforcing compliance checks for that sort of thing. They were then eliminated. Yes. Now you've got Coinbase, which is basically I want to say in bed with the government, but they're playing ball. You also had the same thing happen back in the day with Trezor, the password recovery feature. For those who had a wallet, you could then reconstruct passwords for wallets now, and you didn't used to be able to do that. And now you've got MetaMask, which is another major player that reports direct to the IRS. So you're seeing the seeping of traditional finance into DeFi. And there's a new term that I saw in this article that I'd never seen before. It's used in the context, digital finance. The term digital finance, as I've come to realize, is code for traditional finance masquerading as DeFi. So digital finance is Coinbase, is now the new MetaMask. It's the government knows what you're doing, but it's just done on a blockchain.
But the commonalities between all those companies that you mentioned earlier is that they are the exchange. They are the bridge between the fiat world and this crypto world, right? So you would connect your bank account, you would withdraw funds from your bank account into this other exchange. And from that exchange, you can then maneuver different currencies and trade those within respective wallets. MetaMask is not an exchange. MetaMask is a tool in order to conduct currency transactions within crypto. So again, you can play in the sandbox, but unless you cash it out, there's no realized gain with that. So is it possible? And again, this is me, 1776 American, double taxation without representation. Is it possible you get double taxed on this when the exchanges do that same reporting to the IRS?
I think I wouldn't worry so much of the double taxing. I think that they're not looking to tax you twice. They're looking to make sure they tax you the first time.
I get it. But if all of these companies are saying, hey, we'll play ball, we'll report to you, you think the IRS is not going to take, multiple dips into the same honeypot?
I'm not so worried about that, Mike. I feel like if Supreme Court would figure that one out, if I've already paid my taxes in crypto and then you want to tax me again on it, although you could argue that exists for the death tax in the United States right now. I pay tax on my income if I'm a W-2 worker, which thank God I'm not. And then when I die, they then tax my estate, even though I already owned it. So that's a double tax. Theoretically, you're right, Mike. It could go that way. I just want to draw the distinction.
What happens?
Go ahead, Michelle.
So what happens when you buy something in your Coinbase wallet and then you transfer it to your Binance wallet, which won't be in America anymore after whichever April or something this year, I think it is.
Well,
So,
this is all
like there's
systematic.
all that sort of stuff too, isn't there?
I think they'll get to that, don't you?
But again, who's going to enforce that?
So this is about
And
boiling the
how?
frog
And
slowly.
how?
You're going to have a
Yeah.
global government enforce this, which they don't have right now.
Good luck.
No, I'm just saying you're seeing the migration of traditional finance, Wall Street, if you will, is taking over. You could argue, I don't agree with this, but you could argue that your MetaMask wallet, Mike, is an unregulated bank.
Sure. Argue it all you want to.
So what do you do about that? Well, you make sure that all the government taxing agencies like the IRS know what's in it.
But you and I can start a bank right now. The ability for it to be regulated and
We need a charter. We need
insured.
permission.
Again,
But the government wouldn't want to approve you and I, right? If your last name was Rockefeller and mine was Carnegie, maybe.
I get it, but again, like we can set up a bank. We can go through all the processes if we want to. The opportunity is there. There's small banks all over this country, right? And again, what is really a bank? It's a medium of lending out funds. It's a loan shark. That's all it is. And now you take that on a global stage where there's different rules in different places. Maybe this is the emergence of that Abu Dhabi story that we keep harping on from several years ago.
Years ago, I was at a blockchain NYC function. It was a meetup just to get together, and I met a whole bunch of folks that they were all a bunch of rebels and misfits, as Steve would say. They were going to take down the banking system, anti-JP Morgan speeches, the whole 9 yards. By the way, I'm a Wall Street guy, and I meet another dude there who happens to be a hedge fund trader, and we were chit-chatting. I didn't know him from the business, but obviously we're both from New York City finance. And we were joking about the fact that these guys up in the front stage with these fiery speeches don't understand that eventually this is going to be run by Wall Street. And I don't like the fact that it's going this way, but this is how it works. The moneyed interests with the government behind it are going to just slowly take over the DeFi thing. And this is another step in that. You can't hide in your wallet anymore. So you just said, Michelle, how do you now have to get it to Binance over in China or whatever? Right, you do. And that's the game. This is the cops and robbers, cat and mouse that will continue for a long while until one of two things happens. Either they can control the thing completely, which is, I don't think they can eventually, or the actual banking system has to change. So,
and I think the latter is the more feasible option with that, which is going to piss a lot of very wealthy and powerful people off.
Which is why it's not going to change quickly. I wouldn't expect it anytime soon.
Not quickly.
All right. I'd say we did justice to our tinfoil hats this week. I have one more piece I want to run us through. Yeah, which is I'm going to D tinfoil. So what do you think, guys? I like the whole.
Yes.
I'm very proud of my Vikings.
It's fantastic. I love it. I love it.
You clearly spent a lot of time on that.
No, not really. I got yelled at, guys, last week because I didn't have a tinfoil hat. All right. This is not a blockchain story, but I kind of feel it is. This is something that we spotted over here out of AP News. The story is want to feel special. Stores and restaurants with paid memberships are betting on it. Right now, paid loyalty programs are growing, specifically in the restaurant and retail world. So companies in this economic downturn, are seeking reliable sales in an unpredictable spending environment. Makes sense. But points-based loyalty tiers, which make customers feel valued, require you an upfront fee you pay. The question is not that this is happening. It is happening. Is this the best way to do it? The article is not a blockchain-specific article, but this lends itself to that for a lot of reasons that I'll let my colleagues explain. Michelle, can we start with you on this one?
Yes. So we have talked before about things like Starbucks and companies like Starbucks and Hermes, and quite a lot of the clothing brands have, and airline miles, all of those things. They have been looking at rewards programs, and they've been putting them on the blockchain. And so this is kind of where that ties into this story. What this is talking about is taking that a little step further, I think, where it is trying to roll out the Amazon Prime membership model amongst other businesses. Now, if you read the story, one of the companies has a thing where obviously it's very high end, since they're charging $1,000 a month to be a member of this. But it is to find, obviously it's for high net worth individuals, because it's to find, one-offs or exclusive items for you. And if they haven't got it, then, they'll look for it for you. But what we're talking about here, I guess, is being rewarded for having a membership. So if you pay your $20 a month for Netflix, not only do you just get Netflix, but Netflix give you, 20% off of this or 10% off of that. Those sorts of things is what this is talking about. One of the problems we have also mentioned before on this, and part of the streaming wars and the number of streaming sort of platforms out there, and it kind of ties in, I think, with the paid membership model, is that right now people only have a certain amount of dollars, and where they're going to put those dollars is stretched, and they're making decisions about things based on, well, do we pay the electricity bill this month, or do we have these 5 streaming services? I think that the paid membership model is trying to break into that, and it's a more difficult sell in the current environment. So I'm not sure how successful it would be longer term if there's too many of them.
Mike, what are your thoughts on this? Is Michelle off the mark?
I'm just glad I didn't have to start and analyze a giant rat. But
I'm working on Wall Street.
Notice I didn't mention that.
The paid membership model is nothing new. It doesn't necessarily provide the customer with a unique experience. What it does is it relies on customers who are still paying that don't utilize the service or the product, right? So the overhead costs and everything gets amortized down based around how much memberships there are versus how much money has to get, their overhead costs for the individual company. So for example, if, Chuck E. Cheese, which is what the rat we're looking at, if they charge a membership and, people pay, they sign up for a year, they $5 a month, $8 a month, whatever it is, are you really going to go every month? The answer is no. So if you go 3 times a year, that membership basically subsidizes all of the overhead for the course of that year itself. Trying not to get too financial or technical with the description here. But bottom line is, guess what? This has already been accomplished with the development of NFTs and the membership component within NFTs. There's different projects out there that have deals with restaurants in and around New York where they actually keep tables set aside for people who hold that particular NFT. So regardless if, they show up or not, if they show up, they are guaranteed to have a table at that restaurant. These are membership benefits that are assimilated within the ownership platform. But let's just say that, I don't want my Chuck E. Cheese membership anymore after this. What happens to all my Chuck E. Cheese dollars that I've accumulated throughout the course of my membership? It disappears into the ether. So again, a solution like this is already in place with NFTs. And again, as the technology continues to advance and as we predict it ends up on people's hardware, this is really the platform on where these different components need to start migrating to.
So I think I agree with both of you. Michelle, to your point about people are making economic decisions right now in tough times, you're right. So this subscription-based economy thing is going to falter at the mid to low level. Chuck E. Cheese and Walmart, those customers are not going for subscription base. But at the higher level, in the luxury brand, when you get into Gucci and Dior and, the Sparks Steakhouse patron, those people will. There's money there and they don't care. And subscription actually is a way to drive, regular income, if you will, from the firm's perspective. But I think you're going to see a division, a bifurcation, if you will, of the subscription economy. It's tougher times right now. And of course, you all want predictable income. I don't blame you, but the lower end folks aren't going to be able to do it. So Disney, yes, but like the splish splash up the street, no.
But the problem you have with that too is that ultimately it's all very well, like in the early internet marketing days, it was like, keep it under $10 because it when every month on their credit card, their subscription of, $9.99, people will slip over that, right? They won't worry about it. Okay. So, but when you get to 10 things that are $9.99 per month on your credit card, which we're at that point now, you can easily have 10 different subscriptions over, whether it be for software, whether it be for streaming services, whether it be for, free delivery, whether it be Amazon Prime, all of that stuff. People have got a lot of that stuff now. And it's at some point where you go, hang on, I'm going to review all of these charges. And when you do that, you can often see that you're leaking $50 or $60 a month, which over a year is a lot of money. Particularly in hard times. I think that I like your point, Mark, about the fact that ultimately this could turn into these sorts of things are for the high end of town, for the well-to-do, people that have unlimited money, people that go into Harrods and buy a £60,000 briefcase. So those sorts of people, yes, but at the end of the day, we talked before as well about, do you want 5 customers spending 10 grand a month each, or do you want 500,000 customers spending $500 a month each? That's really what we're talking about here.
The one thing I wanted to make the tie-in here was the reason we include this story. This lends itself to blockchain. The
Yes.
rewards programs that Dunkin' Donuts has rolled out with NFTs, Starbucks, believe it or not, Budweiser, like these things can lend themselves for a cheaper, inexpensive way to do this, and they don't expire, and it builds community.
Yes.
So I think there's a blockchain play here. These companies haven't seen it yet. All right, that'll do us for the week. This is your insight to the digital media revolution. Business on the Block comes to you every Wednesday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. We want to thank everyone. Shout out to the Bolt Nation for the support. We appreciate all the comments. If you have comments or complaints, or you want to add to the show, you can find us on Business on the Block on YouTube and also on Twitter X. I'm going to call it X, Mike. Sorry.
It's all right. As long as they tag you with the complaints.
Closing thoughts from either one of you guys, just as a quick recap, the stories we tackled today. Apple and Google, the AI Dream Team, they are going to be putting or potentially be putting the Gemini onto the iPhone. We also touched on digital humans in the marketplace, that there's a UK startup that has avatars that will do the work of humans, and they're starting out in the entertainment space. And in the conspiracy corner, CoinLedger is now joining forces, so MetaMask's activity will be reported to the government. Closing thoughts, Michelle?
I think that Apple will definitely get into AI something, whether or not it pans out with this Google arrangement is yet to be seen.
Mike, final thoughts.
I think the term digital human is oxymoronic, but I guess, talking about Apple and Google in the same sentence is also moronic.
My closing thought is I'm going to pull up page from the digital finance term out of our conspiracy corner. Keep your eyes open for digital finance. That is the new slang term for DeFi, but being done by Wall Street. All right. Thank you everyone for listening. It's good seeing you. We will be back next week. We hope that you guys join us. Peace.